Men of Reddit, what creepy things have women done to you? First date. Her. What's your blood type? Me. O positive. Why? Her. Good. We can have kids. Just started dating. Showed her a pic of my son. She then asked what I was going to do with him once we had kids. In the 5th grade, we were starting the family life lessons, which is basically 6 said. One of the girls in my class pointed at me and said that I would impregnate her. Searched my apartment, phone, camera, computer, and everything else I owned the first time I left her alone in my place because she wanted to know more about me. She ended up creating a version of my personality she interpreted through my things. Back in 1992, I was dating this girl from Chile. She really liked ABBA. Before we would have a sex, she would make me sing the song Take a Chance on Me while dancing naked. If I refused to do it, there would be no sexy time. Being 18 years old and really only able to think about one thing, I would sing the song and dance the dance. I hate disco. She showed up at my apartment back in college. She knocked on the door and I didn't answer. It was late. I was tired. And I didn't invite her over. She kept knocking louder and louder. The police arrived and asked her to leave. She left and showed back up about 5 minutes later. She knocked some more and finally gave up. The next morning I found a human turd on my doormat. When I was in medical school, a girl 3 years my junior started obsessing over me. Initially it was kinda mild in the I have a crush on you sense. She'd ask my friends about me and messaged me on SocMed from her friends' accounts. Chalked it up to being young. Then she started to mess with girls that I'm close to, including my sister, telling them that they don't deserve me and that I'm hers. Also started hanging out at my neighbor's place and refused to leave until they call me out for some stupid reason and whatnot. And she'd hang out in the neighborhood I live in and pretend that we've bumped into each other on accident. Oh. And I would occasionally post music I like on FB or Twitter, and she would post music of her own as a response because she's convinced that all those music I post is for her. Then in my final year she wrote this 80-page letter in which she professed her love and compared me to some Miss Iwit. Oh, and the best part. It's been a few years since then. A few months ago she started working where I am. The nightmare ducking continues. Girl I dated made a voodoo doll out of her used tampon and my hair shavings from my electric razor that she said she'd use on me if we ever broke up. She buried it inside a lunchbox at the beach and drew a map to find it. She's now a married mother of 2. I was super drunk, passed out on my friend's couch. His friend was there also. I woke up to find her straddling me and pouring whiskey down my throat. It was super not needed. I was destroyed. Apparently she had sex with me that night. Can't say I consented as I wasn't conscious. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and my GF followed me and sat outside the door to wait for me and I didn't notice. Opening up my bathroom door to see a humanoid figure sitting in the dark by my feet at 3 in the morning scared the ever living it out of me. I dated an artist a few years back. I got a notification on Instagram that she tagged me in one of her paintings. And so I go to check it out. I see that it is a painting of her cutting off my D while she's wearing a bunny suit. I then check out her Instagram story. It's a video of the painting in progress. And she's actually wearing a bunny suit while painting it. Edit. And yes, I have a screenshot. Censored her face. As a young teenager, this big girl would aggressively grope me every chance she got on the school bus. The bus driver wouldn't believe me because women don't do that and all guys always want it. One day I was walking to my seat. She grabbed my crotch so hard it hurt and said, "You're not a real man until you split dark oak." She was a black girl, in case that pickup line didn't make sense. I started walking home or bumming rides after that. I was at work when a customer came in. She was overweight and looked pretty slobby. Hair was a mess. Wearing pajamas. A mismatched pair of shoes. She came up to me and asked how she looked because she was about to start driving for Uber and wanted to know if she looked presentable. I just said sure and tried walking away, but she wouldn't let me leave. I don't know how we ended up here, but she started talking about how her skin can't handle most soaps and had to use some alternative to it. Can't remember what it was. She shoved her arm in my face telling me to smell it to see that it didn't smell bad. I politely declined. But she did it again and made it clear she wasn't moving until I smelled her arm. I finally did. Said it was fine. And walked away as fast as I could. Was definitely one of the most uncomfortable moments I've had with someone. Oh man, when I was younger, 22 I think, I signed up to work an event at the job I was at. I had to work a table with an activity and help these Girl Scouts craft something. So these two 13-year-old girls came up and started making crafts. Then they asked me for my phone number and I told them no. Then they asked my name and I told them no. They constantly asked for both of those, and I refused. A female co-worker came up and started chatting with me. The girls then asked her for my info and she gave it away. I was pissed, and thinking back, I'm still pissed. One of them started texting me immediately. I told her to stop and she laughed and walked away. Blocked her number. The next day I got a FB friend request from her and blocked it. Then I started getting messages from her. The same co-worker gave her my work email address and my Space account. She was very persistent in getting me to talk to her and I hated it. Finally I messaged her troop leader and told her about what was going on. She just said she'd take care of it and I never heard from her again. I think not just her age but how persistent she was what creeped me out the most about her. A girl licked my knee at a club. A girl grabbed my ass and fingered my butthole a little while I was in Mexico. I was just watching the Day of the Dead dancers and blammo finger in my butt. Turned around and saw a little Mexican woman slip through the crowd. My girlfriend was like, why'd you jump? And I explained I just got a finger in my butt. A girl I had been dating for just a couple weeks invited me to her mom's house for dinner. Halfway through dinner I finally noticed that they had printed out pictures of me from MySpace. This was back when MySpace was normal. Put them in frames and randomly interspersed them with other family pictures throughout the house. They were laughing hysterically at my reaction. I told them, very plainly and very seriously, that if it was a joke, it was hilarious. But if it wasn't, they never actually answered whether it was a joke or not. We didn't date much longer than that. I was at the grocery store with my wife, then 2-year-old daughter, and twin then infant sons. My wife was pushing a double stroller with our daughter and one of the boys in it, and I was carrying the other, who was calmly cuddled up to my shoulder. We're in the produce section when some random middle-aged woman that I had never seen before spots us, makes a beeline towards me, stretches out her hands, and tries to take my kid out of my arms. She didn't look at my wife or me, didn't say a word to either of us. She just literally tried to grab my son from me with no prompting or invitation whatsoever. I stepped away from her and shielded my kid. My wife chased her off. That wasn't the only weird, creepy middle-aged older woman to come out of the woodwork when the twins were still babies, but she was the most frightening. Had a disagreement over buying her some new outfit dress thing, with the supposed victory going to me with we don't have the money right now and we'll see next paycheck compromise. About an hour later while I was cooking dinner she came up and apologized then came in for a hug, which started nice and somewhat affectionate but ended with her pulling her arms away very quickly across my back. This was to have the 2 razor blades she had sliced 2 deep slashes across my back. She ran away and locked herself in the bathroom. I called 911 and got stitches and all the medical things, had insurance, thankfully. Obviously the relationship ended then and there. Looking back like 15 years later, it is really strange as we were together for about 3 years and didn't have any major fights or physical altercations before that happened. It was so trivial with some massive escalation but in the end it taught me that yes I can cut someone out of my life. Figuratively. Woo puns. I was a limo driver for a number of years. One time this very drunk girl climbed through the divider into the front seat. I was on a fairly busy stretch of highway with nowhere to immediately pull off. There was a lot going on the road, so I really couldn't do anything but try to reason with her. I was seriously afraid she would bump me or the wheel or do something that would cause an accident. After she worms her way up front she starts rubbing my thigh and telling me that I should leave my girlfriend for her. All the while her friends in the back were egging her on and thinking it was funny as hell. I pushed her hand off my upper thigh cock region several times before I finally managed to get to an exit where I could stop. It took me threatening to cancel the trip for her to get in the back of the car. Not the only time something like this happened, but it was the only time a girl risked all of our lives to make it happen. Usually there's one reasonable person in the group to keep the crazies in check. I had a 20-minute conversation with a woman at an airport bar. Pleasant enough conversation. We were both a little flirty and she was attractive and seemed nice. I left to catch my flight, and while I did sort of regret not getting her number, I didn't think much of it again. A couple of weeks later she showed up at my house banging on the door at 10 PM. She had Facebook stalked me, which is acceptable I guess, but because I don't use Facebook very often, I didn't see or reply to her messages. So, like any sane person would do, she figured out where I lived, got on an airplane and came to confront me about the situation. At that point I was already way over the whole thing, but she was basically stuck in my city for the next 3 days until her return flight, and she didn't have much money, so I kinda had to let her stay with me. It was pretty awkward, but it wasn't all terrible. I mean, she was a nice girl and pretty as a peach, but I was just too weirded out. If she had written me a letter or waited until I saw her messages, and we would probably be married right now. I couldn't get past the crazy stalker behavior though. Sucked my blood from an open scab without informing me she was about to do so. She considered herself a vampire. When I picked up my 90-day chip in an AA meeting, this old lady seductively kissed my neck and told me congrats. While not interested, I still sprang a boner. At age 14 I visited my sister in a mental ward attached to a hospital. Cigarette why middle-aged women kept making passes at me. It wasn't an all-female institution or anything. AWW man. I was the awkward teen girl. I grew out of it. Mostly. So now I'm here, checking this thread with my fingers crossed, hoping none of these stories sound familiar to me. I was hanging out with a couple of friends once. One of them got too drunk and started rubbing my D through my jeans. She was twice my age, fat, and generally unattractive. But what made more of a difference than that was that she kind of grabbed me when I started to pull away. I was much stronger than her and sober, so I didn't feel like I was not in control of the situation. But the fact that she tried to control me physically kind of took it out of the realm of what I was comfortable with. I was at a music festival in an American flag on Ishi last year, and a lot of people were wanting to take pictures with me. I was having a good time meeting a bunch of new people. These group of older ladies, between 40s and 50s, came up to me and wanted a picture. When I got in their group, one kneeled down. When they took the picture, the one who knelt down grabbed my crotch. I moved and yelled hey. She said shut up and grabbed it again and said you're a guy. Enjoy this. I ended up just leaving pretty quickly at that point. Edit. Thanks for all the support. If you need any help or advice, please look at the stickied comment from the admin. Edit 2. Here is the suit in question. This girl who works at my mom's work, they are servers, always tells my mom she's going to marry me and thinks I'm cute. It wasn't a big deal at first, but it got out of control for a little bit there, commenting heart eyes and inappropriate remarks on any post my mom made with me tagged in it. She finally followed me on Instagram and liked every one of my 700 something posts. And here comes the worst part. She starts messaging me through Instagram and I didn't reply once, but she begins having a conversation with herself with me in my inbox. Like asking questions and answering them for herself and replying as if I said something and saying things like I heard from your mom that you're going through a rough time, and opens up to me about her past, which is a long and inappropriate thing to send to someone who hasn't even replied. This is among many other creepy things she's done to me. She doesn't bother me anymore though. Just the occasional like on a picture. Girl at Best Buy hit one me while I was there with my pregnant girlfriend. First time it has ever happened to me, and my girlfriend had to be right there. My ex stabbed me with scissors. When I got home one night, she insisted that since I didn't answer her calls that I was cheating on her. I was not. Scissors went 3 inches into my gut. In a daze of confusion I wrestled her to the floor in an attempt to stop her attack. I woke up for days later to learn her brother, who, while I was trying to subdue her, thought I was attacking her, hit me in the head with a cast iron skillet, and 12 stitches and a slightly worse short-term memory later. I said to myself I'm never talking to her again. Don't stick your D in crazy, stay with a hot girl when you know some screws are loose. Oh Jesus, so many stories. I was working at a pharmacy in Michigan. I had gotten one of my really good friends a job there. Both of us being single. We got too drunk one night and ended up hooking up. She mentioned it to one of our co-workers. That co-worker told another co-worker. And they began to ask to see my D. Asking if I had measured it. Would try and compare it to things, asking if it was close to this size. etc. It was pretty awkward all around. I also had a female pharmacist who used to get really close to me and throw her hip into mine. She'd give me a hug when I showed up to work, not in an okay way. She'd make comments about how we would have dated when she wasn't married. Other weird AF comments. I mean, it's not creepy, but it was pretty weird. I was 19, working making toasted sandwiches. It was, say, midnight, and this girl I know had her friend with her, so we were all hanging. It's since occurred to me that the friend, Amy, probably had a thing for me. They were both pretty drunk, and Amy came behind the counter thing and asked for a bite of the toasty I was eating. Don't tell my boss. So I said okay, and she, like, attacked the bottom of this baguette with her mouth, like, gobbling it up and whatnot. Then she said I get so slutty when I'm drunk, and went back to the other side of the counter. I was real confused at the time, though now I realize that was just her painful attempt at drunken flirting. Still, she was attractive. Edit. Sorry to disappoint, but no, I did not bang her. I was at the pub with some friends and one of them left a scarf at an our packed table. She was feeling socially awkward and asked me to get it. I thought no big deal. I'll get it and show her there's nothing to be worried about. I asked a woman in her early 20s, I was 18, if she could pass me the scarf. She got up, walked over to me, wrapped it around my neck and proceeded to try choke me with it, really going for it. Her hands were shaking from the force she was putting into pulling the two ends of the scarf. The pub was packed, but everyone just stood there not exactly sure of what was happening, myself included. After what felt like ages, two guys pulled her back to her table. They were looking at me worried, shaking their heads with faces that said we have no idea. Everyone around the table clearly knew her and was shocked by her behavior. I can't help but think about how differently this would have played out if the genders were reversed. If a man did that to a woman in a crowded pub, he'd get thrown out and the police would be called.